Okay, here we are heading into the home stretch, everybody. Tonight we're going to be doing three different things, even though I got two listed on here. We're going to be talking about basic overview of tracking. We're then going to be talking about the final project, project number 5, I can't count. And we'll also, if we have time, talk about repeaters, which is something that we've already covered slightly, but we'll talk more about. The class file, of course, there it is. It's a big son of a gun, by the way. It's much bigger than everything other ones. There's a lot of video in this one. And also for repeaters, you are very lucky. AE Shapes and Repeaters is a brand new document. I just wrote it over the weekend. I've been working on it actually for a while, but I just thought it was finished enough. So you see, if you have typos, if you find typos in it, my apologies. And we will just see how we go from there. A little visual, something to start with the evening. That's okay, we'll just stop that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, tracking. Tracking is a very not complicated, but it's a very useful tool if you're doing video work. If you're not doing a lot of video work, you may not find this as useful. Tonight is only a basic overview of some concepts in it. Honestly, to cover all the possible combinations would take quite a while to talk about tracking. So I'm just going to try to do some basic things with you just to introduce the ideas for you. So we got comp number 1. Now for me to do tracking, I'm going to actually need some video. So I'm going to start by grabbing this walking movie. Now one of the things that I showed you earlier, but just a reminder, is if you don't know what size this is or length of the video, if you just drag it and drop it directly onto that little film strip right there, it will automatically make a new comp the right size and time of the video that you have in question. This is only 3+ seconds long, so when you're dealing with tracking, what we're trying to do is keep track of pixels. Now, from the human eyeball, these are two guys walking down this vacant lot. Have some sticks and stuff, etc. However, from a computer's point of view, this is all a series of pixels. It can't determine shape and things like this. But what the computer can do is it can track this different color a pixel. Notice that this guy's ears are very unique shape and stuff. So this is something that changes over time. It literally moves, as you can see. Oops, and I moved the entire layer by mistake. There we go. Okay. To get to the tracker, I just simply want to go Windows, Tracker. And I'm going to move this around. Oh, I forgot to ask everybody, yell here up in the here in presence. The question that was earlier asked, are we watching Project 4? No, you're just turning them in tonight. I'm going to be grading them over the next few days, and we'll watch them next week. Tonight you're getting Project 5. So anyhow, getting back into, there's several different options here, but what we're going to watch mostly here is track motion. By hitting this, notice that we are now in the layer, not actually in the composition. Remember how whenever you double-clicked on anything, it kept opening up the layer, and you go, why would it do that? Well, one of the things that we can do in layers, and we can do a lot of things here, is use the track motion. So by clicking track motion, or any one of these other 4 options, we get this pop up. And with this track motion, we get this thing here, which is a track pointer. It's made up of several different pieces. This outer one is the area being scanned, meaning that the computer is only going to pay attention to what's inside of this and not look anywhere else. That's a good thing because you know, if we just have this brown ground, I was trying to track something with it, you know, it might get confused by seeing this level of brown with that level of brown and stuff like that. So I can narrow the amount, I can even make it odd shaped, of where it's looking for pixels. The inner square is what's actually being tracked. This is what the computer is looking for frame to frame. But it doesn't look outside this area to do this. And then in the middle is the tracking anchor point, which you can do several interesting things with, but not. Now the thing is, if you grab one of the little handles, of course you can resize any one of these things. If you grab just roughly anywhere you want, you can move it. So for example, I'm just going to grab a blank area. Notice that when I do move it around, it does a little magnifying glass thing. And I can sit here and go, okay, I'm trying to track this guy's ear. The reason I'm choosing the ear is because of the contrast of the black pixels next to the skin color. The one thing trackers do like is lots and lots of contrast. The more the better. So let's see what this thing does. So when I hit this, I then have some more options over on the right-hand side. There's a point here. Okay, so it's like, here's my source. If I had multiple layers, I would have to tell it what I'm trying to track, obviously. I have currently one tracker, which is this one square. There we go. I'm not doing anything really interesting in the sense of whether these are different options. I'm just, you know, standing still. But I can also track not just the position, but also rotation and size. So if something was being moved right to left, scale coming towards me, going away, I could use that. When this is all said and done, it's going to create a whole series of keyframes. As a matter of fact, it's going to create probably a keyframe for every single frame of film. That's a lot. Sometimes you want them on your video, and sometimes you don't. So when you're done, you sit there and go, where do I put them? When all of a sudden is done, where do they go? Okay, then we have a series of analyzing steps here, which are play needles forward and backwards. Because I'm at 0, 0, 0 of my timeline, I just want to hit the right-hand side one. So I just hit that. And the computer, you see, is moving along, following his ear. And you can see how he was bouncing up and down, right and left. And if I go forward and backwards, it really did a good job of following what we were seeing there. Okay. So I could put all these keyframes directly onto the composition or the video level. So that's not going to let me do that. So instead, I'm going to put this onto what we call a null layer. A null object, null layer, is our little thing that After Effects has. It's just this little square with an anchor point, all the things that you're used to for a layer. But this does not render out. It doesn't do anything. One of the things that we commonly do with this is we use these null layers to store pixels that we want to use elsewhere without interfering with the options on the other layers. So if I go back to my walking thing, I'm going to hit analyze backwards, analyze forward. Obviously it hasn't changed. Edit target. I'm going to put my null. Now notice, because now I actually have a target or a place to put the keyframes that's generated, my apply button is now activated. So when I hit apply, it goes X, Y. It goes, yeah, I want both the up, down movement and the X, Y. Now on my composition, notice there's my comp again, it's put that null object directly on this poor guy's ear, which it doesn't render, so when I hit play you can't see it. Now that sounds very, very unexciting, of course. All right, so what can I do with this null layer? Well, for example, I can take this hat, which is another layer. It's a little too big, so I'm going to just play with the scale. Do a little
My question?
Sure, go for it.
What key do you hold down to get the little hand to drag on the screen?
H for hand.
Wonderful, thanks.
So right now I've got this silly little hat, and of course it's on its own layer. But if I do a parent-child relationship saying, hey hat, do everything the null layer does, watch what happens. I think I got one rogue keyframe in there because notice how it bounces down. But this is how the beginnings of the concept of how we put information, you know, we do 3D stuff and other things where people can hold a piece of paper and we can place text into that piece of paper because we track the motion of the video. Now the reason why we have this null layer here is and by the way, I should have pointed out, look at all those keyframes. There's one for every single little frame. But you'll notice that because it's a parent-child, there are no keyframes on the hat itself, which allows me actually to create new animations. So for example, I could, you know, make his hat bounce up, go over a few frames, bounce back down again. So this animation is separate from the tracker, which is making it move left, right, and doing its own animation. Now it looks like it's pounding him in the head. That's because I should have not started up on top, but started down below. Anyhow, so again, the tracker is used to place information into the scene and make it look seamless. Now the reason I'm spending some time this evening to talk about trackers is because next week is Memorial Day, so there's no class. But when we get back from Memorial Day, I'm going to give you an introduction to green screens. And this tracking idea will come back at that time. And no, I do not have a handout for trackers. I just haven't had the time to figure out how to get it down to 2 pages, as it were. So that's a basic idea. Any questions so far? And again, if you don't want to type something up, you can pop your microphone on. Now, the other thing that we can do, I see no questions yet, so let's go ahead and try something else. And we'll do more complicated stuff. I'm going to grab the space shuttle. There we go. Make a new thing. Now, this is NASA footage of the space shuttle coming into land, but it's a giant telephoto lens, so therefore this is like 10-20 miles out there. And what happens is even the slightest breeze or motion causes the, sorry, and I just changed the wrong comp, my bad, there we go, causes the video to jump around. Now we know that everything in this video is X and Y, up, down, right, left. But one of the options that we have is a thing called stabilized motion, in which we use once again, the tracker to choose. Now I'm going to choose the tail here, although I could probably choose anything else, again, because I would like that nice contrast between the white and the black edge and the blue sky. Now the other thing to keep in mind is, remember, it was jumping around a lot between frames, like that. Therefore, I'm going to actually increase the area it searches on the next frame, because it's going to want to know that that's there. So once again, I'm telling it to so instead of track the motion, I'm telling it to stabilize the motion. And I just lost my tracker because I told it to start over. And like before, I can hit Analyze Forward. You can see it struggling, but slowly getting there. The bigger I make both of these boxes, the slower your computer will run too, as it analyzes the information. And you can see how much this was jumping around. That is the motion path of a piece of video. Now, whenever I do these Analyze Forward and it's in the layer mode, basically it's holding these keyframes in reserve. For example, if something really got screwed up and like a frame, I could actually come in here, manually adjust something, and then move it up, or adjust it, and then tell it to analyze it again to help it refine the information. The tracking systems built into After Effects are pretty good, but they're not perfect. Once I have this down, I would then tell it apply. Now, of course, there's only the one video thing, and it's okay for me to put stabilization onto this video because that's what I want to do. So when I hit apply, once again it goes, are you sure you want to do both X and Y? Yes, of course I do. Now I'm back in the composition. And you can see that it basically, I accidentally created that one tracking point, but you can see how many keyframes this thing created. And this is normally why we put these onto a null point, because it's one of those things of, if I wanted to make any changes and stuff, where would I go and what would I do? But here's the side effect. Now watch what happens. You'll notice that's doing a very good job of stabilization. The space shuttle doesn't look like it's moving at all. But the problem is it's doing that by physically moving the entire layer, messing with the position information. So you get these really bad blank edges. And stuff. So what's the fastest solution to that, of course? Well, I'm going to transform. Oops. Yeah, you can see there's all the thing. I can always just scale this up, recenter it, and that's what we call stabilization of motion. So basically I can track the motion, i.e. the right left, to impact other layers, or I can impact the layer itself. Those are the two basic things. But you got to imagine, this is really cool for when you have those handheld shots that don't look very good because you didn't have a tripod. This is a big lifesaver. And then normally, of course, what I would do is, pre-comp this out and then do whatever I needed to do with the rest of it. Any questions so far? I'm going to, no questions so far. But yes, this could be very memory intensive. Let's do another stabilization. Here I've got a handheld shot, like I was saying, just take your thing out. But you'll notice that it's actually kind of rotating a little bit too. The camera's, it's handheld, it's going a little bit. So I hit stabilization of motion, but this time I'm also going to hit rotate up here. Because the video is turning a little bit right-left. It's not just going left, right, up, down, but it's also the handheld shot is rotating it just a hair. So I want to capture this. So how does the system measure a rotation? Basically, it creates two tracking points and links them together. So what it measures is how much these two rotate, literally. What is the angle of degree? So what you want to do is you want to find, of course, two areas, like the edge right there. And I like that because obviously there's a black edge, but the crosshairs also work nice, but it could confuse the rest of this with the crosshairs. But it does give me a chance. And then I'm going to come over here and choose that. Now when you're dealing with perspective, I wouldn't want to grab something here because the angle is wrong for the rotation. But I will sit here and just go, okay. And notice that my plane needle is not in the center, or excuse me, it's in the center. So I can analyze backwards, which gives me, or I can analyze forward. When I zoom in here, you can see that is how much handheld was moving per frame. So once again, I could sit there. I'm going to go ahead, because stabilization, I can go ahead and put that onto the video. Hit apply. Yeah, look at how much keyframes that actually generated. Yeah. And when I hit apply, you can see, yes, indeed, that actually is much more stable. But again, I've got the nasty edge over here because that's what's pulling out of. So if we were to, so we can see the edge as I handheld it. Once again, the quickie solution is to just simply increase the size just a hair. And it has a little bit of motion. This is a little more realistic than the Space Shuttle thing, because the Space Shuttle was on a tripod. So it does have a nice natural look and feel. Again, it's a great time saver. So everyone's looking at me saying, okay, so I can stabilize the motion. That does not impress me, Eric. It's not that interesting. Well, okay. Let's try to do something different then. For the next thing I'm going to do, and this is something we do in class, is do a little stunt, for lack of a better word. I'm actually going to rename that LE for stabilize. For this next thing, I'm going to make a new composition. I'm going to put some text in here. Say OK. I'm going to give it a background. Give it a color. Let's make it like blue. Okay, say OK to that. I'm going to put some text in there. Let's see. Let's not make that blue, because blue on blue doesn't look very good. But there's some nice contrast. In fact, I think I'm even going to go so far as do a little bevel and emboss on that. There we go. Okay. So I have a comp with just SMC on there. I'm going to make a new comp again with the LA video. There it is. What we're going to do this time instead is I'm not going to, notice that's still not, this is non-stabilized. I'm going to replace that gap sign using tracking. Okay, so I'm going to tell it basically to track motion again, rotate, and this time I'm going to tell it to grab that edge, and rather than transform, I'm going to use actually perspective corner pin, which actually gives me 4. It's going to create a box actually. Yeah, I'm going to want to zoom in on here, see how I did. Because this box is going to be the bounding box for my distortion or for my artwork. Just a hair. Okay. So now I'm going to analyze this forward. Notice how it slows down just a hair because I'm asking it to do more. And I'm going to target. That's right. I don't have anything. Why? Because I don't have it in the same composition. Back to the layer. Now I have it. So if we just look at the tracking itself, once again you can see how much animation is going on. It's tracking each corner independently of each other. So I like those, you know, it looks even, everything looks good. I'm going to now apply all this information to the text comp. So all those keyframes go there. Why can't I see it? Because what's on top and what's on the bottom. And because I didn't take out the stabilization, this is not stabilized, you can see that it moves in sync with the handheld shot. This is how you replace billboards in city scenes and things like that. If I don't like that, of course I can always go in and change the colors of things. Of course it helps to select all the text. If I wanted to, I could even go back in. Let's see. Find a video footage, which is way too short, but you'll get the idea. Oops, don't rotate on me. I did not say that. Go back to. You can see there's the police footage, as short as it is. So I can actually put anything into this box I want to. That's the reason I pre-comped the text information. So it allows me to change and alter this at will. Can I change the solid? Anything I put in here, yeah. So for example, if I, sorry, hit the wrong thing. Layer, solid settings, change the color. Yellow. Oh, that makes that text look so ugly though. Let's go back to blue. Voila. Now this has your attention, doesn't it? The things you can do with this. So I'm racing through this rather quickly, I realize. But what do you guys think? Interesting stuff. Tracking is not necessary for every project. Unless you're dealing with video, you don't use it very frequently. But as we get toward the end of the semester here, I only got a few more classes left. I want to show you at least a few new ideas, okay, which are not going to impact your final project per se, although when I talk green screens, almost everybody wants to do that. I start with tracking before green screens because you actually need to know tracking before you can do a good green screen for obvious purposes. Now, let's take this a step further. I'm going to make another new comp. And I've got a car. This video is coming toward me, it's rotating, it's at a weird angle, etc. So I'm going to take my SMC text layer, use it here as well. What I'm going to propose is I can make this text layer into a license plate by doing the exact same thing and replacing this. So for example, I just have to, basically select this, tell it I want to track motion, but I'm going to use a perspective, give me the 4 points. Edit the target, meaning that all those keyframes are going to go onto the text comp. And now I got to come in here and grab each one of these little things. Whoa. Okay, I'm going to increase the search area because it is doing a lot of things. But the thing on this is, remember, it's that box shape that's going to determine basically where my text is going to go. All right. Let's analyze this forward. And you can see already, stop. The computer's already become very off. It doesn't get it. Back it up. This is the real tracking. Sometimes you sit there and go, okay, maybe it needs to track more right, left. And I can also go back in here and adjust it as needed. Sometimes tracking is your friend, and sometimes it will drive you nuts. Now the other thing is it allows you to move things one frame at a time. So you can actually track. And while this sounds very tedious, and I'm not going to kid you, it really is, it's still better than trying to hand put this information in. Plus, once you've got it set up, it will probably run fairly well. So let's go ahead and just analyze it forward. You can see how it's slowing down from time to time. A lot of processing. Now this may seem slow and it's taking forever, but on the other hand, I'd like to just say that it's one of those things of, yeah, but it beats doing this by hand, honest to goodness. I can also stop it if I want to, which will allow me to zoom out a little bit more to get more to the 100%. And you can see that's how much motion I've gone so far. I'll just keep telling it to keep going. And basically, I'm just trying to track this with my eyes and see if at any point in time the computer loses its little brain. Yep, it just did. At the end of this video, it always does. So by backing it up a few frames, I can zoom in here. And then I go 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frame, 4. That's where it went. Goes wrong. So gotta be careful here because you can accidentally move keyframes themselves here. Okay, keep going forward. No. Bad computer, bad computer. At this point in time, I can also adjust the boxes and stuff to try to help it out. Do a little bit more of this. Wow, this thing is just losing its little brain. When I tell people professionally, we often sometimes have to, fix things 1 frame at a time. They go, no, because they want the magic button. Good grief, it really is losing its too much black, perhaps. This is also why I don't, whoa, back up. That bottom one just went nuts on me. You can see how long this would take in class for everybody to do this. Now I've trimmed off the last few frames here where it's starting to lose its brain because I don't want to have you guys watch 10 minutes of me tediously going through 128 frames or so. But once you get the way you like it, of course, you hit apply. And I just did the exact same thing I did before. And now the thing will distort. So if you need like license plates from other states or just something different, because that's actually a lot of information it's trying to keep track of. You can also help yourself if you know you're intentionally doing this, is you could put some, like white tape around the edge and let the system track that on a black car, which it would do a much better job of. Okay, people, what do you think? You're so quiet tonight. Something good on YouTube right now? As a matter of fact, if you ever look at TV shows and movies, you'll see. Hold on for a second. I should have. You know, if you ever look at making of, like here's the Marvel thing, you'll notice that people wear these silly suits. Get a shot of that and stuff, because those are all tracking points. This is what is actually being tracked. This is how they can put, you know, Iron Man hasn't actually put on a suit, or I should say Robert Downey Jr. has not put on a suit in a very long time. Of course, you can never find the image you want. They literally, you know, paint the suit around him using these tracking motion markers. So what I'm showing you tonight is the most simplistic of, you know, what these guys do. It's a really, you know, long process. Like I said, this is just an introduction to tracking. I don't want you guys to think that this is, you know, you actually know everything. But the using some tape yourself could actually save you a lot of time if you want to do this sort of thing. So this is just a cute little thing. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can do with it and stuff. I don't want to, you know, get too heavy-handed with it. The two things that I personally do the most of is to track the motion so I can insert something into the scene, or I stabilize the motion where I'm trying to fix the handheld shots in particular. So what do you guys think? Any questions or anything about this so far? The video and stuff is all in the folder that I asked you to download, so you can try practicing this a little bit at home. As you can see, you know, it doesn't really take that much. Just try to do a simple track and stuff. Again, I'm sorry I don't have a handout, but it's just one of those. Can't have a handout for everything, but that's also why I have the book. The book will cover this in vastly more detail. But with that, it should get you started. Any more questions, anybody? Or should I move on? You're all so quiet. Oh, nuts. My bad. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.